Thank you, Judy, for being with me today.
I'm excited.
Me too. Me too. Judy is a thought leader in both leadership and sales. She's written four books, four very well received books. And we have talked many things leadership. And when we discussed what conversation do we want to have for the Courage of a Leader podcast, Judy, you focused in on how powerful and successful and engaging it is when a leader is truly being generous. So,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about demonstrating generosity as a leader, what that means, why it's important, how we do it. So, Judy, let's start with the what. What do you think about when you think about a leader demonstrating generosity?
There's so many things you can actually start with, but I'm going to just start with it's more about the real generosity is giving without receiving. That's the most important thing that you have to understand. Just because you're giving somebody something, you cannot expect them to give you something back.
Yeah.
But with a leader, being generous, I say, is being generous with with their time.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing more valuable. I don't care if you're just starting out in your position, if you have been there forever. When somebody opens their door for you and gives you some time, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah.
And, there's so many examples of it, but my favorite example, and this is really something that I would say I would work for this person anytime.
Okay.
There was a man that was being interviewed, and the CEO was doing the interview, and he had his cell phone upside down.
Okay.
So there's your first clue. But for some reason, it vibrated. He
Mm.
thought he turned it off and it vibrated. He didn't touch it. And it vibrated a few times, and the person that was getting interviewed said, "Do you need to get that? It sounds like it could be important." And the
Yeah.
CEO said, "There's no one more important than you."
Mm. This
That was
person
it.
I'm in this conversation with right now. Yeah.
And so for me, that's a great example of being generous.
Yeah. Simply people giving them our time
Mhm.
and our attention.
Right. And being present in that moment.
Yes. Why is that so important, Judy?
When you are a leader and you are scattered everywhere or constantly looking everywhere or looking at your watch because there's text messages coming in, you are not showing that you are having any kind of interest in whomever you're speaking with, whether it's person, a group, it doesn't matter. You're not there. And if you're not present for something as small as a meeting, how are you going to be present for something really big?
Yeah.
And I know for me, when somebody gives me all their attention and we have eye contact, even virtually, when
Yep.
you have eye contact, you can't ask for more than that. So being present, being generous with your time is truly one of the biggest qualities I believe a leader can have.
Yeah, and I know that there's research about engagement
Mhm.
by Gallup and other organizations that the thing that employees want most from their leaders is attention.
Right. Attention.
And that is showing up and being present and giving them our full attention.
Yeah, and recognizing someone who has done something because you know who they are. You know your people because you've given them some time and you've learned about them. I mean, it's a big cycle. It really is. When you know your people, you can be more generous. When you know what they want to do, you can, be generous with your time and your experience and your expertise and your mentorship and all of that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I'm seeing that clearly. I started to draw a cycle on
right.
a piece of paper over here before you said those words. Because once I know you and I know that you play tennis and I know that you're trying to drive cooperation inside of your team or whatever it is,
Mhm.
then I follow up on that, right? How was the tennis match this weekend, right? How are the tennis skills building? How's the team collaborating with other teams in the organization? Then we can follow up on those conversations and it gets easier and more organic to be
Right.
able to give that interest.
And I know that you've heard what I had to say because you're
Yeah,
following up on it. When I was in financial services, I would tell all of my agents, when you're with somebody, ask if it's okay to take notes. What are they going to say? Yes or no? No one's ever said no to me.
yeah,
And then I have to listen to what you're saying because I'm taking notes. But I'm not just taking notes, I'm taking notes in your words. I'm not
Mm,
paraphrasing them.
mm,
So when I say to you, oh yeah, I play tennis and I'm going after the South Lake Executive Women's Forum. I want to be part of that. And I'm writing that down because that's what you said. And when we come back and I'm saying, so did you get into the South Lake Forum? And you're thinking, how did she know that?
how'd you do that?
Right? Because the
She
best
knows.
compliment you can give someone is that they really listen to you.
What would you say, Judy, to the folks that are like, it's about the work, right?
It is about the work.
We show up at work to be productive. Like why do we got to talk about tennis? Like why do we got to talk about how I'm feeling about the work?
You don't have to. Let's just put it out there. You don't have to do that. Sometimes, if
Uh,
you're trying to find some kind of thread that connects the two of you, that makes it easier to have a conversation with, that's why you do it. But if you want to keep it straight for work, you can keep it 100% work because as a leader, I'm going to say to you, tell me how you see yourself. What is it that you truly want to be in this organization? Now, I'll go back to financial services for a moment because I did this all the time. And I would only get three answers. I would say,
Okay.
they would either say, and I hate when people say just, but
Mhm.
I just want to be a producer. I don't want to worry about anybody but me. And I would say, great, I will show you the journey. Or they'd say, I want to go into leadership. And I'd say, great, I'll show you the journey. Or they'd say, I want your position. And I would giggle first. And then I'd say, great, let me show you the journey. But
Nice.
I knew what they wanted because I'm writing it down. I want to be a producer and I want to do $7 million or whatever. So if something didn't work the right way, I would go back to my notes and say, Amy, when we were together, you wanted to go into the leadership track and you need to have this and this designation.
Mhm.
How are you doing with that? So
Mhm.
it's the same thing. It's 100% work,
Yes.
100% work, but it's the same concept because I'm giving you my time, you're giving me your time, and together we're bonding and we're growing a relationship. It's the same thing.
Lovely.
Doesn't have to be tennis,
You're asking, what do you want?
right?
Right.
And how can I help you?
What support do you want? How do we get there? And offering that, right? So we could ask that about someone's career. We could ask
Correct.
that about the project you just launched together. You can ask that about the task that we just delegated. What would success look like for you with this?
Right. And what do you need? And how
Yeah.
can I support you? I mean, that's how simple it is. And people make everything so complicated. So it's open lines of communication. And that's a big part of generosity as well, to give them the idea. Now, I'm not saying to be available 24/7. You don't have to do that. But
Great.
you can have, if you want to give them a calendar, you can do that. Or you can just say, let me know when you're available. Let's see how we can make our calendars cooperate. If they can't, we'll move it along.
Yeah. Let me know what works for you.
Yeah,
I'll accommodate it if I can.
if I can.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
I love it, Judy. I've got more questions, but let me tell listeners more about you.
Okay.
Judy Hoberman is president of Judy Hoberman and Associates, a company focused on empowering professional women. She is an award-winning international speaker, best-selling author, trainer, and leading authority on women in leadership and sales. Judy is a TEDx speaker, as well as the author of 4 books, including Selling in a Skirt and Walking on the Glass Floor. Judy is the executive director for the Walking on the Glass Floor Foundation, a board member for Fearless Dallas, and on the advisory board for Females in Finance, as well as Cal Poly Enterprises. Judy is the host of Selling in a Skirt with Judy Hoberman podcast and has been the gender expert on Fox News Radio. Judy's mission: to help one woman a day by following an important philosophy. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. Thank you for being on the podcast, Judy.
Thank you for having me. I was so excited for this day to happen.
Yes, yes, me too. We've been looking forward to it. Now, Judy, I know one of the ways that you are generous as a leader is you are a mentor,
Mhm.
support people in those ways. How would you suggest a leader think about being generous with others in that way? How do you get that started?
Well, I think for me, I was put in a position where I was the only female, I was the only mentor. And so it was naturally, air quote, assumed that I would be the one to do this, which was thrilling to me. I don't know about anybody else, but I thought it was great. And so I would ask people what they needed, just like I'm telling you. I always say, well, how can I support you? the question I always got back was, how can I find a mentor? And
Okay.
I say, you just ask. But you don't have to say, will you be my mentor? You ask a question. Like for instance, I would say, Amy, when you do this, you make it so simple. Can you show me how to do that? I
Mm,
didn't say help. I didn't say support. I didn't say mentor. So you
mhm.
can, there's one of two things you're going to say, of course, or I don't have time. If you don't have time, you're not my mentor. I know that already. But if you do, we might get into a conversation and you might say to me, I'd love to help you with anything else that you need, or I'd love to help you, show you the ropes or whatever. And that's where mentor mentee relationships start. That's how most of mine started.
Yeah.
However, there are companies now that are doing official mentoring programs, and
Yes.
that's wonderful. What you do find is there's a lot more mentees than mentors.
Mm,
So
mhm.
again, you have to have somebody that is willing to go out into the industry or go out into the community and say, I'm looking for, mentors for women, for men, whoever it is. But being a mentor is one of the most important ways of being generous. You've already been there, done that. You already bought the
Yeah.
t-shirt. You already know what it's like.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you help the next level, the next generation of leaders? Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
I don't have time. Okay, you don't have to do it every day. You could do it once a month, once a quarter. But even if you gave somebody 20 minutes or 30 minutes of your time, you do you know how much they soak in? And by the way, do you know how much you learn as the mentor?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a great statistic. It's 65% of all women who have been mentored become mentors.
Ah, nice.
Okay. And if you've never had a mentor, I never had a mentor. I never had a female mentor ever, ever, ever. I became one. That's the woman I became when I started my company. I became the woman that I wish I would have had and I didn't have. So if you've never had a mentor, become one.
Lovely.
Become what you want. But I think that is, an incredible way to really show that you are a great leader.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hearing all we need to do is have our door open. And when someone comes and says, I need some advice on doing this, or how did you launch this part of the business, or whatever
Right.
it might be, how do you groom people for the technical track or the finance track? You're ready and willing to respond.
Right. And if you can't do it, you might say, I'd love to help you out right now. I'm swamped with this project. Could we do this maybe next month or something? Or is it something that, there's a fire, right, that you have to put out?
Yeah.
You just have to be open and listen and ask questions.
I want to underscore something you just said, Judy, because I think it's really important. We often talk about being open, being accessible to others. And I hear you saying that doesn't mean you have to be open in every moment, accessible in every moment. You have your working hours. You
Yeah.
say, I don't have the bandwidth, right? It could be the mental bandwidth, the energy bandwidth, the
Right.
bandwidth in your calendar right now to do that. Love to support you, and I'd love to support you when I have that bandwidth. Does next week, tomorrow morning, next month work for you? So that,
Right.
yes, be open, but that doesn't mean we have to be open every second of every day.
And you shouldn't be. It's the
Yeah.
same way, if you're a salesperson and you say to somebody, you need anything 24/7, I'm here. That's not true. It's not true. You can't,
I'm sleeping sometimes.
that's right. And if somebody going to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's ridiculous. So you have to say, during office hours, I will be available. And if not today, tomorrow, there's many people that do many different things to show that they have boundaries. So they're not always 100% generous. I have a colleague, she has her autoresponder on every single morning. Every day it's on. And what it says is, I'm with a client and there's nobody more important than a client. I will get back to you in the next 12 hours or
Yeah,
after 5 or whatever. So
nice.
she can be generous with her time, but there's also boundaries attached to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Judy, I love that. And I wanted to underscore that because I have so many leaders that tell me, oh my gosh, I get to Friday and I didn't get to do anything that I had planned as a working manager, right? Because I was responding to team members' needs, a significant portion of the week. Maybe they didn't need to.
Right.
Right. Like
And
maybe some of that could have waited for the next week.
well, and that's what I'm saying. I had 3 agencies of my own, and I always took my Fridays and blocked them off. I always block them off. Now, if I had, customer service stuff to do, but I never booked appointments, I never booked a training. And if I had people that wanted to see me, I would say, let's do something on Friday.
Ah, great.
So it gave me that kind of breathing room.
Yes.
So I didn't say on Friday, oh, I got nothing done for me. So I knew that my Fridays could be all the leftover stuff. Did I get everything done on Friday? I didn't, but then there was another Friday coming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So you could do it many different ways, but
Hmm.
I would say at least be available at some point, unless you don't want to be, and then just say, I'm not available. I don't have time, and that's fine. And people will find somebody else. It's
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah.
at least you're being honest and you're not keep pushing them off and pushing them off and pushing them off because that's worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. I love this suggestion. Create some space in your
Yeah.
calendar for
Yeah.
that. Fridays is what was working for you in that situation. It might be an hour at the end of the day. It might be a couple hours on Monday morning. I mean, who knows
Who
what works
knows?
for you and
That's right.
your team and your situation. But if we have that wiggle room in the calendar, that's a time that you can offer them.
Yeah. And it works because once you get used to it after like the first week or two, then you're looking forward to the Friday because yes, you've got some things with customer service, you have to do that, or you have some things with someone's license, you have to do that. But maybe there's, an hour, two or three that it's open, but it has somebody's name in it. And these are the people that really just want to sit and talk to you.
Nice.
And they look forward to it as well.
Yes, and then we're training those around us to work
Do the
with
same
us
thing.
in the ways that work for us,
Right.
right, and they can pass it on. Okay, another question around mentoring, Judy. So, I've seen leaders make this mistake. I get conscious about trying not to make this mistake that a mentor just starts spouting the experience and how they
Mm.
would do it. And they might be telling, especially if it's a newer relationship, they might be telling the other person things that they already know, right? Or that's not going to fit their style or their approach. How do we make sure we're tailoring it to the person in front of us?
Ask questions
Nice.
and just keep what is it? Unfolding the onion,
Yeah.
the layers. Just keep asking
Peeling,
questions.
revealing. Yeah.
Peeling, yeah.
Whatever that
I
is.
couldn't think I couldn't think of the word was the word there. Have you ever heard of the five whys?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So that's one way to do it. You keep asking why or so what or and then what or whatever it is 5 times
What
and because
else?
then you'll
Yeah.
get yeah,
Mhm.
because then you'll get to the bottom of it. But the other thing that I do is I will ask them, so tell me what's really challenging for you right now.
Ah,
And
yeah.
they'll tell me. And then I'll say, okay, so what do you need help with? And what can I do? But I give it to them in such a way as so what do you need? Like really, what do you need? If that's your challenge, what do you need? Well, I need somebody to help me with the technical portion because I'm really bad at that. And I need somebody for the graphics because I'm really bad at that. Okay, so what can I do? They
Lovely.
can say, who do you know? Whatever. But if you ask questions, open-ended questions are the best because it gets somebody, we call it talk show questions, you know,
Ah, yeah.
because it gets somebody else to talk. If you said, why do you like being on my show is very different than do you like being on my show? Because if I said no, there's the end of the conversation. So,
Mhm.
but when you give an open-ended question, it gives them the ability to not only talk about what it is, but you get to know them and you get to know their style. So
Mhm.
you just learn from the person you're talking to by just listening to what they're saying.
Yes. That's really great. I love that your response to my question was so straightforward. Ask questions. That a couple of questions at the beginning of a conversation or the next part of a conversation can really help you know where to point your
Right.
information. And
Yeah.
open-ended questions. And I would say one question at a time.
Yes. Yes. Don't ask 12 questions. This is a 7-part question. And then there's the, okay, I don't remember what the first question was.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Yes.
I mean, I ask open-ended questions and then I just stop and I listen because
Yeah.
I know for a fact people will tell you things that they wouldn't ordinarily tell you if they trust you enough to tell you those things. And when they're telling you those things, you need to be listening to them because they're really important.
Yes.
So if you give them a 7-part question, that's never going to come out. It's never going to come out
No.
ever. So that's what I'm saying.
And this is another example of being generous.
Yeah.
That we ask that open-ended question. I want to hear from you. I want to hear where the most valuable place to take this conversation is for you. And then we're patiently waiting to understand that. I
Yeah.
think often leaders like, I got to provide value. I'm moving from meeting to meeting, and now I'm in this conversation, and you bring up a subject matter. I've got some expertise, and I just start spouting it
But
rather
I
than,
wouldn't, but I may not understand what you're talking about though.
right,
You've got, 25 years of experience and I have 25 minutes.
right.
And so if I ask you a question and you go, look, I'm just going to tell you everything and here you go. I couldn't even, I wouldn't get past the first sentence probably because
Yes,
it's gone. It's gone from me. So
yes.
you have to also pay attention to who's sitting in front of you. And I was going to say this before, but a lot of times when people think about generosity, the reason they don't want to talk about generosity is because they think there's a financial piece to it.
Say
Because
more.
generosity usually means money. I'm generous with my money. I'm generous. I'm able to buy you this. I'm able to do this. And a lot of people can't do that. So they don't think generosity is really a leadership quality until you explain you can't buy someone's time. I mean,
Mhm.
you could buy somebody's time, but I mean, not in not in the, the way we're talking about it. But that's why generosity is so important to me because it doesn't mean something that's going to exclude people from.
If you give time and attention and interest and presence.
Correct.
So, Judy, let's say that there is a team leader listening and they're thinking, yeah, I'd like to do some more of this. And maybe with some of my team members, or too much of the time, it feels pretty transactional,
Hmm.
right? What advice would you give them for making a shift, starting to move to the other side of the continuum?
One of the things you have to do, like I said, is you have to know your people. You have to know what makes them move, what makes them tick. If you asked a group of your team, if you asked, let's say there were 5 people on your team, what is really important to them, you're going to get 5 different answers.
Yep.
And I can guarantee you that many times money is not in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they looking for with generosity? A lot of people are looking for recognition. Tell me I did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Show me I did a good job. And one of the things I tell leaders all the time is, I'll ask them, do you have an internal newsletter? Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, well, what if you recognized someone on your team? So what you're doing is you're giving them the recognition that they need. It's very generous of you to do this, and
Yes.
they're feeling like you're invested in them.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, the engagement's going to be up, the retention's going to be up, all the things that you're looking for. And that's a very easy shift to going into showing somebody that you really care, you really want them there. Retention is a very big deal right now. And it's been, I mean, it always is, but right now people are talking about retention,
Yep.
whether people want to work from home or they want to do this. So how do we keep them engaged? Show them that you care.
Yeah.
And being recognized is a huge way, but
Yeah.
also listen because active listening is one of the hardest skills of all. And that's why I say take notes because you must listen when you take notes. But listening to somebody, bar none, is the most generous thing you could do for somebody is to really, really listen and understand. And what you don't understand, you ask a question. And my favorite question for that is, so tell me what that looks like.
Ah.
And then you stop talking because now
Mm-hmm.
they're going to tell you the way that they see that particular situation. So tell me what
Yes.
that looks like. You're not saying to them, "I don't understand it," it's over. Just
What?
say, yeah,
What?
just tell me, what does that look like? Tell me what that looks like for you. And then they tell you. And
Yes.
then you understand that it really is not such a big deal, but because it's a little bit above what they're doing, they're thrown. So you say, "Okay, so have you thought of this? Have you considered this?" You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's those kind of things. And that's the shift is so slight,
Yeah.
but it's like it speaks volumes.
Yes. Really well positioned, Judy. So know your people. And I love that you're talking about taking notes.
Yeah.
Right? I often recommend create a chart.
Yeah.
Leaders, you've got your team members and what's important to them, how they like to be recognized. right?
Right.
And begin to put more and more of that in. And, and everybody make note of this phrase. So tell me what that looks like for you.
I'm telling
Really
you,
great.
Amy,
Tell
that
me
is the easiest question. I have coaching clients that have been with me for years that I keep telling them, you're okay. You don't need me. No, no, you're always on my shoulder or you're in my ear. And sometimes when we're having a conversation, they'll say to me, so tell me what that looks like. And I just start laughing because they really listened and they didn't understand, but they didn't want to say, look, I don't understand what you're talking about. Just tell me what that looks like. And then I got a big grin on my face. I'm like,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yes, that is a great way. Yeah, to not put them on the spot or feel like you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's just yeah, a really great way to keep the conversation going so you
yeah,
can get more shared understanding.
yeah. And it just keeps going then. And you
Yeah.
keep saying that. Okay, so tell me what that looks like. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. What does that look like to you? It's the same, it's the same kind of questions, but they're non-threatening questions.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I have been taking notes furiously over here, Judy, as you've been talking. I want to recap all of this great information you're sharing with us today. Being showing generosity as a leader. It's about giving without needing to receive,
Hmm.
right? It's giving our time, it's showing interest, it's being present. Be willing to help. Ask the open ended questions. What do you want? Right? What do you want in your career, in this project, in this meeting, with this relationship? How can I help you? What support do you need? Right? So tell me what that looks like for you.
I'm
Right?
telling
We're
you.
asking the open ended questions and we're listening
Yeah.
generously.
Can I tell you a funny story? A real quick one?
Absolutely.
So when I first moved to Dallas, I didn't know anybody, zero. I wasn't married at the time. My kids were grown. I knew nobody except the company that I was with. And so when I left the company I was with, I definitely knew no one.
Okay.
And so I started meeting people. I go to networking events and I'd have these one-on-one meetings. And the first, I don't know, five, six, seven people, when I asked what they did, they told me they were a servant leader. I'm
Okay.
a servant leader. I'm a servant leader. So after the fifth or sixth one, I said, why is everybody a servant leader? What is that? And this woman looked at me and she lectured me for 25 minutes about what servant leadership is and blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, I do that every day. I just didn't know that I had a name for it. And so, being a servant leader, serving and supporting others. I know some people don't like the word serving, but truly serving and supporting others is part of being a leader and it's part of your generosity. You don't have to have a name on it. You don't have to shout it out that says, I'm a servant leader, because if you do, then you're probably really not. Because
Mhm.
you don't have to be recognized for it. Somebody will say,
Mhm.
"Oh my goodness, that's wonderful."
Mhm.
But I just always remembered that because it was just so funny to me that people had to announce
Yeah.
or announce, I'm authentic. Let me tell you, I'm authentic. You don't have to announce these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It should
Yeah.
just come. It should just come naturally.
We had a new label, Judy. We had a new
Yeah,
term, right?
I thought it was something in Dallas.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
I thought, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I've never lived here before. I guess everybody's a servant leader. I don't know.
That's a great story to end on, Judy. And it's also reminding me that you've already talked about, yes, we can be in service of others, we can be generous to others, and also in ways that work for us
Right?
so that we can genuinely continue to do so over
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you for your generosity today, Judy, and for your time and expertise.
Well, thank you for having me and thank you for your generosity. And I loved our conversation and it went in a blink.
Yes, so quickly.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.